Daf Yomi, Tractate, Avodah Zarah, page 59. Starting at the bottom of 58b, Rabbi Yochanan L'Tamei, the Gemara notes that Rabbi Yochanan conforms to his standard line of reasoning. Now we're on the top of 59a with the words Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Daf Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadak, Ma'im shel Rabbi Menes Ner Sorin. As Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadak, water that belongs to the public is not rendered prohibited. The Gemara infers that since water that belongs to the public is permitted, therefore, in the case where Gentiles bow to water that is owned by an individual, it is rendered prohibited. The Gemara challenges, but Rabbi Yochanan could derive that even water owned by an individual is permitted as the water is connected to the ground. And worshipping an object that's connected to the ground is not rendered prohibited. The Gemara explains no. It is necessary to derive this halacha from the fact that the water belongs to the public in a case where a wave raised the water and detached it from the ground. In this case, worshipping water owned by an individual would render it prohibited. Sof avneha shenidal delu ninu tistayem Rabbi Yochanan amar asurois. The Gemara challenges, nevertheless, the water ultimately falls into the category of objects that were detached without human involvement, such as boulders of a mountain that dislodged on their own. The Gemara in 46a cites a dispute between Rabbi Yochanan and the sons of Rabbi Chia with regard to boulders that dislodged without human involvement and were then worshipped, and does not conclude who deems the boulders permitted and who deems them prohibited. May it be concluded from Rabbi Yochanan's statement that it is Rabbi Yochanan who says that the boulders are prohibited. Lo tricha ditavchinu biyadei. The Gemara replies, no. Even if Rabbi Yochanan deems the boulders permitted, his ruling with regard to the water is necessary in a case where one struck the water with his hand and thereby detached it. Since it was detached due to human involvement, if the water was owned by an individual, it is prohibited. Rabbi Chia bar Abba ikla ligavla chazavenos Yisrael mi'abran migoyim shemalu velo tavlu Chazah chamra dimaz goyim Yishatu Yisrael Chazah tormosa de shakli lehu goyim achli Yisrael velo mar lehu velo midi. Rabbi Chia bar Abba happened to come to Gavla. He saw Jewish women there who were impregnated by Gentiles who were in the process of converting and were circumcised but had not yet immersed in a ritual bath. He also saw wine that Gentiles diluted with water, and Jews then drank the wine. He also saw lupines that Gentiles were cooking and Jews were eating. Despite all this, I must say, lupines. I'm really curious on what lupines is, so I have to look this up because I just don't know what lupines is. Maybe anybody knows? Does anybody know what lupines means? What is a lupine? A lupine is a plant of the pea family with deeply divided leaves. and tall, colorful, tapering spikes of flowers. Okay, learn something new every day. Let's go weiter. He saw lupines that Gentiles were cooking and Jews were eating. Despite seeing all this, he did not say anything to them to correct their actions. שהן ממזרים לא ינם משום יין נסח על תור בשר, משום בישול לגויים, משום שאינם בני תוירו. Later he came before Rabbi Yochanan. He told him what he had seen. Rabbi Yochanan said to him, "Go and declare about their children that they have the status of children born from an incestuous or adulterous relationship with mamzerim." Well, that's, I think, just because someone's a non-Jew and impregnates a woman doesn't mean that they're mamzerim. But apparently Rabbi Yochanan holds that. I remember there was a small opinion that holds that anytime a non-Jew and a Jew had a relationship, that the children are mamzerim. But I don't think that was the majority opinion. In any case, and decreed with regard to their wine that it was prohibited as an extension of the prohibition of wine used for libation, and with regard to their lupines, you should declare that they are forbidden due to prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles, as they are not people well versed in Torah, and any leniency will be misunderstood and applied too extensively. Ad Shem Movit Yitro, Kim Tavil Goyhu. Amar Rabba Bar Khan Am Yochanan Goy, the Eved Haba Abbas Yisrael, Havlan Mamzer. Wow. So Rabba Bar Chana, in the name of Yochanan, says that a Goy, a non-Jew, an Eved, that impregnates a Jewish woman, the cause of Mamzer. The more explained with regard to declaring about the children, then it says Mamzerim. Rabbi Yochanan conforms to sound reasoning concerning two halachot. The first is, as Rabbi Yochanan says, one is never deemed to be a convert until he has been circumcised and has immersed. And since the father has not immersed, he is still considered a Gentile. And the second halacha is, as Rabba Bar Chana says, that Rabbi Yochanan says, in the case of a Gentile or a Canaanite slave who engaged in intercourse with a Jewish woman, the offspring is a mamzer. Amrinan. Lai 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 lai. Dai 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 dai. Amrinan Nazira. Sechor Lachar Lotikra. The Gemara continues to explain Rabbi Yochanan's second instruction to Rabbi Chia, a decree with regard to the wine that is prohibited as extension of the prohibition of wine used for a libation. Although the Gentiles did not touch the wine when he diluted it, he is prohibited due to the maxim go. We say to the Nazarite, go around, but do not come near to the vineyard. Bi'al masan, mishum bishli goyim lefishen b'nei tamid b'nei b'nei Torah, b'nei Torah shali. V'amr Shmuel bar Yitzchak Amar Kol shenei chal kimo shehu chai ein bo mishum bishli goyim. Lastly, Rabbi Yochanan instructed Rabbi bar Abba to decree with regard to their lupines that they are forbidden due to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles, as they are not people well versed in Torah. The Gemara asks the reason that the lupines are deemed prohibited is because they are not people well versed in Torah. But in the case of people who are well versed in Torah, one can infer that the lupines are permitted. But doesn't Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak say that Rav says anything that's eaten raw is not subject to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles, even when cooked by them? Lupines are not eaten raw due to their bitterness, and therefore they are subject to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles. Rabbi Yochanan ki hach lishnas mirale, Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. Amar Rav, Kol she'eno oleh l'shulchan shel melachim lelefet bo et hapad, ein bo mishum bishul goyim, ta'amad de'ena b'nei Torah ha'b'nei Torah shari. The Gemara answers Rabbi Yochanan holds it according to that other version of Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak's statement, as Rav Shmuel Bar Yitzchak says, that Rav says anything that lacks importance and therefore does not appear on the table of kings in order to be eaten together with bread is not subject to the prohibition of food cooked by Gentiles. Lupines are not sufficiently important to be served on the table of kings, and therefore they are permitted even if cooked by Gentiles. Consequently, the reason for prohibiting the residents of Gavla from eating them is because they are not people well versed in Torah. But in the case of people well versed in Torah, the lupines are permitted. Ba'u merav kahana goy ma'u shiyolich anavim lagat shiyolich anavim lagat amalahu asu bishum lachlach amrinen Zarah schal l'charma mitzikrav it's Vera V'Yimar of Kahana Goy Shevi the God B'Salim. The sages ask of Kahana with regard to a Gentile, what is the halacha concerning the following question? May he bring grapes to the winepress without doing anything else to them? Rav Kahana said to them, it is prohibited by rabbinic decree due to the maximum go. We see it in Nazareth, go around. But do not come near the vineyard. Rav Yemar raised an objection to Rav Kahana from a Braita with regard to a Gentile who brought grapes to the winepress in baskets. Now we turn to 59b. Uve dudorin. Afal pi she'haya mizalef aleihen mutar. Amar lehevi kamar. Ana lechatchila kamina. He brought the grapes to the winepress in baskets and small barrels, and even though the grapes are squashed in the process of the wine, meaning the juice, sprays into the grapes, nevertheless they are permitted. Rav Kahana says to Rav Yemar, are you saying that this is the halacha where the Gentile already brought the grapes? The bride is discussing whether the grapes are prohibited after the fact, whereas I'm saying that one should not permit a Gentile to bring the grapes ab initio. Naktu lide kiechedlo neshachse be uvatzruha ade shaifa. The Gemara relates there was a certain etrog that fell into a barrel of wine. A Gentile jumped up to take it out of the barrel, thereby unintentionally touching the wine. Rav Ashi said to the people standing there, hold his hand still, so that he does not stir the wine and render prohibited, and tip the barrel until the wine is drained into another vessel, and then he may take the esrog. Amar Rav Ashi, Hai goy dinas lecha v'dischoy v'chavana, afal gav din zaboni goy achrina asu shalim lein mishkal d'ben me'al goy ma'ita ma'nikla kale. Rav Ashi says, in the case of this Gentile who intentionally poured a Jew's wine as a libation in order to render it prohibited, even though it is prohibited to sell it to another Gentile, as one may not derive benefit from it, nevertheless it is permitted for him to collect his monetary value from the Gentile. What is the reason for this? It is considered as though the Gentile burned the wine and destroyed it, and he is required to pay for the damage. Also, Yehuda ben Bava, Rabbi Yehuda ben Mesera, Matiren Mishum Shnei Dvarim. Echad, Shemenas Ben Yain Ela B'Pnei Avodah Zarah Echad Shoyim Elo Lo Kol Hemnach Hamencha Shetesor Yeni Leonsi. Rav Ashi says, from where do I say that this is the halacha? This halacha is derived, and it is taught of Braita in the case of a Gentile who poured a Jew's wine as an idolatrous libation, but not before an object of idol worship. The wine is prohibited, but Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Yehuda ben Matera deem it permitted due to two factors. One is that idol worshippers pour wine as an idolatrous libation only before an object of idol worship. And the other one is that the Jew says to the Gentile, "It is not in your power to render my wine prohibited against my will." Rashi rules in accordance with the opinion of the first time. Nevertheless, he derives from the reasoning of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Yehuda ben Matera that one may collect compensation from the Gentile whose actions were against the will of the owner. There was a certain barrel of wine from which the stopper had been removed and the wine was spilling out. A Gentile came, jumped up, and placed his hand on the hole to prevent the wine from leaking. The Papa said, any wine that is adjacent to the stopper is prohibited as it was touched by the Gentile.